Back live with you tonight, you're in Focus, and thanks for staying on. The ANC Electoral Committee revealed preferred nominees for branches for the governing party's top 6 positions. Party President Cyril Ramaphosa leads rival Zweli Mkhize by a mile, while KwaZulu-Natal's Mdumiseni Ntuli leads the race for the Secretary General position. Meanwhile, Ramaphosa has dismissed reports that he has endorsed any candidate in the top 6. Joining us now to discuss really the performance of the various cabinet ministers in this particular administration, but also broadly the road towards the December elective conference and how that is impacting on the performance of the various departments, is ANC NEC member and Minister in the Presidency, Mondli Gungubele. Minister, good evening. Good to have you, and thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, Tabo. It's a long time, and good evening to your viewership. Thank you for the opportunity.
Most of the time you are joining us online, and sometimes it gets lost in translation. So it's a good thing that you decided to come in today.
I've got disorientation. I've not been here for a long time.
No, that is perfect. Let's first start here. I mean, many of the challenges that are afflicting the country and the country's economy, right, are said to be attributed to the poor performance of those you have deployed in government, right? When you look at the performance of the ANC in government, how much of what we are seeing as the outcome is because of the internal power struggles within the party?
Well, depending on what you speak about, I just want to say, Tabo, the series of policies we've implemented so far, be it in the place of Vulindlela structural reforms, what we are doing in the rail infrastructure, what we are doing in the road network, our interventions now to actually to improve the balance sheet of Central, all those are positive interventions. Whether you talk water licensing, which used to take years, which has gone now to 90 days. There's a lot of things that we're doing. Challenges are still there. But of course, you will not be able to separate what's happening to government from what is happening in the party, especially the party in power. But having said that, we had our challenges, but we are a government on course towards turning around economy. Just recently, I think it was the second quarter, the last labor survey. After a long time, it gave us a net outcome of employment of 648,000, something we had forgotten for a long time. Reduced unemployment from 35 down to 33, and of course, electricity continued to bedevil that. And those are some of the challenges we're dealing with. A lot of things that are happening in green shoots are an indication of a government in pursuit of turnaround.
Yeah. I tell you why I'm asking that question. I'm asking that question because in the build-up to this election, and there are contestations, and one could say maybe this is a really good opportunity for the broader society who are not generally in the meetings of the ANC to get a sense if the leadership actually gets along. And the picture that is beginning to emerge is that actually the leadership doesn't get along. In fact, when you hear a senior veteran in the ANC who is in cabinet, for example, who says, I implemented a resolution of the ANC to turn the desk to turn the embassy in Israel into a desk, and I was attacked by the Jewish community, and the ANC didn't protect me. He says, well, the president knew it was public knowledge. He said nothing about it. He just kept quiet. This is a minister that is supposed to serve at the behest of this president, who clearly, from that articulation, is aggrieved by how the ANC leadership acted and how she was treated in that cabinet.
Well, I guess that minister sometimes must table facts, because I am yet to see the evidence of the president having dealt with a minister who is implementing the resolution of the ANC. I find it difficult to be consistent with the style of work of the president. The problem is that sometimes here in these channels, certain people are allowed to get away with murder. They are able to say things to excite, but they are not testers to demonstrate the evidence of that. I don't know what you're speaking about. I've heard it and I've listened to it. I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah. So the linking of saying, well, I implemented the ANC resolution and I was then immediately thereafter reshuffled. And she's not saying that's the reason why she was reshuffled, but she says it's very difficult not to draw that.
There's also a risk of pretending that I know what is in the head of the president when he decides to change ministers. But I find it very astounding and unbelievable that I've not been able to come across where the president would have actually expressed, would have frowned upon an ANC member who is implementing an ANC resolution against the background that this is a renewal president who has been leading the implementation of 54th resolution, be it in turning around the systems of the organization, implementing the renewal programs, dealing with issues of corruption and so on. I'm saying, I find it unthinkable and inexplicable. I cannot see the basis for that. But however, I will not claim to know when the president changes people. I know, but this one that you're speaking about, I cannot be able to locate its base.
Yeah. And are you then therefore able to say in that instance when the so-called deployee then fails to perform in that portfolio, do you have instruments to bring them to life? Do you have instruments at your disposal that could be used to enforce discipline? Because sometimes you would look at that and think, oh, that's why they are not happy in the new portfolio that they have put in, because they're seeing it as demotion or as punishment, and therefore they don't perform.
Listen to, none of us, Thabo, is entitled to be deployed in any ministerial position. I always see it as an opportunity for you to demonstrate the best you can. And over and above that, the president has got performance agreement with ministers. We do facilitate that, and also our teams are able to analyze and at the same time table that before the president. Sometimes I don't know what these people are speaking about. I don't understand.
But you should know what these people are speaking about. It should be something at your disposal. That, for example, if the portfolio committee
how do I know?
On tourism, it's public, it's out there, oversight committee saying we have tried summons, we have tried invitations, we have tried all sorts of things for a minister to come and account to Parliament. We're at the point where now we are saying she must rather resign because she's just failing to show up. Are you able to intervene with some instruments at that particular point and bring discipline?
On such matters, the Deputy President, as a leader of government business, is the one who handles that. I'm not sure whether that has been actually, his attention has been drawn to that, and how is it doing that? As a Deputy President, it is in the area of what to call, it is in his terrain. But as a minister, you must understand, I cannot summon a minister and say, why are you not appearing before the standing committee? But I want to say it up front, it's just totally unacceptable that we shouldn't. Maybe you have heard about myself, even myself. I was threatened with summons because the SCOPA, public accounts, the SCOPA and the intelligence committee don't agree whether I can appear before SCOPA or not. In trying to resolve that, it got projected in the media that I don't want to appear to. But anyway, we've actually escalated that to Mr. Frolic. So I'm saying it's not as if in the public eye I'm also a cleaner one, but it's a different issue. All I'm saying that all of us, including myself, it's just not acceptable when we are called by the committee not to appear. You must make a very good reason. And I don't want to speak to the details of the minister concerned to claim that I know, but generally.
But does it reflect in the monitoring and the evaluation framework? That kind of appearance. If you fail to do it, is it something that counts in your favor or against your favor? What are you monitoring as far as the performance?
Monitoring and evaluation, Thabo, looks at the plans of government and how they cascade in the various departments and what kind of objectives how they cascade in what types of objectives per given department, and then what is committed to be achieved by when. We've got our own framework of analysis, what people will call outcome facilitators, who are deployed in various departments on an ongoing basis to analyze monthly and what is actually happening and give report. On 6-monthly basis, we give a full performance like we did last week. We give a full performance report of the department. It's the first time now we actually converse with the media the way we do, because we're trying to lift that issue of M&E work to be, not to be some mythology somewhere, to be a known phenomenon. That after 6 months, you guys must anticipate that there will be a full report on how government is performing. That's how far we go, but I don't think we really get involved on the conduct of ministers. That is in the purview of the president and the deputy president.
Let's look then at that particular aspect. The said minister says part of the challenge of this monitoring and evaluation is that it evaluates performance on paper as opposed to evaluating performance on the ground.
She doesn't know what she's speaking about, or she's very economic with the truth, or he or she is very economic with the truth. If you go and look at our reports, if you come to police stations, the police, for instance, they will tell you the samples of the police stations they have gone to. If it's agriculture, they will tell you the visits they have made. If it's issues of land, they will tell you maybe it's in KZN. There's a samples of practical work. We've got what to call frontline, what to call services. More frequently led now by Deputy Minister Kekan. As I talk to you now, she was in Cape Town. She's been in the Free State. If you can check, maybe we must share with you our reports. They will demonstrate to you it's both practical and so on. Sometimes people make statements that expose whether they are on the field, they themselves or not. The point I'm making that we have got those samples. We'll show you. My memory is very fresh on the samples that they showed in Gungubele to the state of politicians in KZN, I think in Mlazi and so on. Those are practical things. You cannot make that statement without having a project. Our teams do visit those, what to call those projects. Yeah.
Let's talk about those practical things then. 13,000 women were victims of assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm. It's shown in the latest statistics. This is between the period of July to September. 1,200 women were victims of attempted murder. 989 murder. 10,000 rape cases were opened. There is evidence here that clearly there is no adequate response from the police to stop gender-based violence. There is a minister that is there conducting oversight over this. How do you rate that performance?
I'm not in a position. You know, when you do rate performance, it's not a willy-nilly job, because whatever rating you must give account. All I can say to you, we've gone through those stats. There's a huge challenge in as far as security in general is concerned. It's what the president referred to as burning platforms, the security cluster, economic cluster, governance. Those are clusters where there are special programs to turn them around. For instance, if you go to that report, it will show you a number of aspects that 62%, especially when it comes to sexual assault and so on, 62% of those occur within our homes. Now, if you look at it that way, it means the problem is more complex than we actually see it. Because naturally, if they occur at homes, it's not easy to deal with those. Secondly, the issue of crime now is quite complex, because there's also a relationship between that and the state of social economy in the country and so on. Of course, what excites me is that decisive interventions in terms of resources directed by the president and implemented by the Minister of Finance, those are quite significant in terms of personnel capacity and also even increasing the budget. Those issues are there. That includes resources as it pertains to general law enforcement agencies, be it NPA, be it the ID, stabilizing SSA. Yeah. It's a question of the entire security cluster actually upping its ante. It's a problem. It's worrisome. it does not indicate that we're on top of this situation. But what comforts me, there's a strong focus in terms of capacitation. President has already changed, not long ago, put in a new commissioner. It has been demonstrated now. There's a lot of arrests that have taken place in a short space. I'm sure you guys have seen yourselves. Even if you go to DNA, which was per kilo was about 150,000. If you look at those stats, it's about 70,000 now. That's a significant reduction.
Some have challenged those stats to say they've not been backed by any real evidence on the ground.
Well, I mean, stats is a fact. So I don't know which evidence you want. I'm not sure if I make this point. State is a fact. So which evidence do you want other than the fact? Just demonstrate that fact doesn't exist. That's the point.
Is the president soft on non-performance?
Soft?
Yes.
I'm not sure what
I mean, for example, there have been many calls, for example, for the change of minister in police. And the president has really not acted. And those numbers keep piling and piling and piling. Crime statistics keep getting worse and worse with every report that comes out. Is the president soft on non-performance?
Well, any challenge that we are confronted in government, Thabo, it depends on the nature of that challenge, how that challenge is attributable to an individual. Government challenges are more complex than people look at them. I've already said to you, socio-economic situation. I've already said to you, greater part of sexual harassment, 62% in families. It's a multidisciplinary challenge. So the degree to which it's a multidisciplinary challenge goes a long way to explain who is responsible for it. I don't want to make a judgment on the softness and the strength of the president, but what I know the president's focus and his understanding of challenges and the number of interventions he has made. To what extent that affects keeping or removing individuals, that's not in my purview.
We'll take a break. When we come back, I will talk more on that. I want to push you a little bit on that. That is the consideration, competence and capability, or there are other factors that come into play which are largely political and not about the performance of the various cabinet ministers. Mondli Gungubele stays with us, NEC member and Minister in the Presidency. You can let us in on your phone, 072-110-5584. You can tweet us tonight at Newzroom 405. Back with you tonight, you're in Focus, and thanks for staying on. Conversation continues. Minister Gungubele with us, a member of the ANC's NEC. And, of course, we'd like to get your thoughts on Twitter at Newzroom 405 or on 072-110-5584. I go back. The Deputy Minister of Public Enterprises was also one of the candidates vying for a position in the top six. Says leadership seems incapable of driving a program of unity in the party, one, but two, making it to be unable to rally and lead the processes within the state to ensure an all-round delivery, to ensure we impact the lives of our people. Takes me back to our question. Is it possible that there are those who are within the cabinet who've been appointed, deployed there, who've been deployed for other factors other than their capability and their competence? Considerations of unity in the party, considerations of factions that allowed the president to ascend?
I guess when the president put together his team, takes a lot of issues into consideration. You need a stable party, because that party is going to be responsible for directing policy implementation in government. It's very useful when that party does so. It does it in a very coherent way. So a lot of intervention, a lot of factors get taken into account. So there could be various reasons why the president deploys certain people. And I dare say that part of them is also to ensure that the organization tries its best to actually stay together. There could be that could be some of the reasons.
Yeah. Has the unity project failed? Did the president fail to unite the party?
Well, it depends from where you are looking, how are you looking at it. Let me put it this way. I think in the party we've been confronted with a lot of issues. A lot of issues, Thabo, you see us fighting about. More than 90% of them have been unanimously adopted within the meeting. But something very inexplicable recently, we adopt something unanimously and people go and attack it in public. I'm trying to imagine what would the president do about that? Because the best way where you try to forge unity is in those decision-making, what to call chambers. If this president has been able to make this NEC to take tough decisions unanimously, your step aside was adopted unanimously, timing on reserve bank, all these dramatic things people are making about this populistic statement. Reserve Bank 2019, way in Durban, I keep on repeating this, a resolution which always has been supported by the NEC. NEC has no choice, by the way. 54th conference resolutions must be implemented. Economic cluster or economic committee briefed the NEC in Durban about the timing in terms of the impact it would make if we implement that resolution. We agreed unanimously. Within a few days, hardly a day, some of us would have gone out and attacked us for not implementing a resolution. Let me give you another example. This circus about land. Remember, the president made a call when he took over in February 2018 about the issue of land. How a lot of processes led by Enoch and other relevant subcommittee leaders went to Parliament, put together processes, committees led by ANC chairs, crisscrossed the country led by Matole and others, in making sure that we are able to amend that clause so that it is explicit and so on. Yeah. We did that. But why has it not been implemented? We don't have the 2/3. You know why? None of these clowns, I want to say it now, none of these clowns will speak about land. Will tell you that one of the reasons we lost the 2/3 is because of corruption. Right? It's in our literature. Tony True would have presented that several times. So we lost the capacity to take those key decisions because of corruption. To me, it takes only clowns who, knowing very well, why don't we have 2/3? Some of them who are corrupt, who have been charged, knowing that their behavior created this situation which makes it difficult for us to implement, and then run. It sounds very, how do I put it? It sounds very, it's a scheme to me. So, all I'm saying that, how does the president, where else can we unite people other than areas where they meet? And this president has tried his best not to descend in arena of taking sides in the NEC and so on. And that's what I'm saying. Decisions.
But is that not then indicative of the failure of uniting the party? Because, for example, one of the presidential candidates for the December elective conference, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, says you are in an NEC meeting and all you could discuss were the 3 branches in Ekurhuleni, or 5 branches, I forget the number, that were disqualified, that are supposed to be there. And this consumed your whole entire meeting.
What has got to do with the president? He's a member of the NEC.
The president is not took precedence and priority over discussing things like.
But he was in a meeting. He didn't call a point of order so that item should he himself participate in that debate. He was supposed to call a point of order and said this matter should not be discussed here. By the way, for your own information, that very unfortunate item which occurred here is the president who actually led in referring it to the structures where it's supposed to. The point I'm saying that that very comrade was part of that NEC, but that's why I said to you, more than 90% of the issues, those are some of the things that unfortunately occurs. Let me put it this way. Indeed, at times we do get involved in, what do I call it, in petty debates. But I'm more concerned about the significant issues which are an expression of our division there. that most of them, more than 90%, are those that have been resolved unanimously in the organization. And for instance, I'm saying if the president cannot use those meetings to lead us towards that unanimous position, and it presupposes that this is not a creche, it's adults. If adults agree on a decision and then go out and insult it, that's creche. And I mean, how do you handle a creche?
So what actually happens in this meeting where now you're having leaders that you're saying it was unanimous? Now, the very same unanimously agreed upon resolution, some are saying, well, this resolution has been taken up opportunistically and it's not being applied across the board, the step-aside resolution. Others are saying maybe that resolution should actually, for example, also include something like Phala Phala, which they deem quite serious. In fact, they find that should be a reason for President Cyril Ramaphosa to step aside.
You know, the challenge we have is that up to this point, Phala Phala is a pack of allegations. There has been no finding by any other institution. I'm trying to imagine if, whenever there are allegations against people, you were to take those decisions. Yeah, but having said that, we have agreed on processes of handling such issues. For instance, it's straightforward. If you're criminal charge, you know, that one you step aside. If you're convicted, you go. But if there are these allegations, and in the close analysis by the Integrity Commission, they are of such a nature that you need to give space, those are the processes that must actually be undergone. Now, there is a temptation to seek to subject the president to processes that are not actually part of these that I've spoken about. So, here is the point. The president has subjected himself to all these processes. Integrity Commission has not pronounced, and so on. Am I saying, Thabo, the step-aside process is perfect? No, I'm not ready to do that. I support people who say, please improve it, make it better. If there are elements of bias, deal with that. And because I want to say, if it is inconsistently implemented, those who implement it inconsistently are no different from those who do not want it. Because if you implement it inconsistently, it means you do not like its objectives. Yeah. You want its reputation to go down. It's a fundamental debate. Let me put it this way. I've said it several times. I think as a movement, if there's one thing we must not be proud of, Thabo, is to have a resolution like that called step aside. Advanced democracies, you don't have such a resolution. People just take a decision. I remember, is it Gerhard, if I remember, in 1980 was challenging Reagan. I may not actually quote the facts. He was seen walking in the city next to, I think, something like a brothel. I wish I can have my facts. But what is the key thing? He pulled out of the, step aside. Even in the ANC, this thing of step aside is a new thing. I can list a number of comrades who stood aside. Yeah. To me, the fact that we ended up having a step aside, that alone is a matter that we must feel very bad about.
But isn't that really, that's the argument, that it is not in the character and the values of the ANC to have a step-aside resolution? In fact, the fact that there is this Phala Phala charge should be enough to say to the president, maybe step aside and clear yourself. Because many in NEC are saying now, as they sit, they are not clear on whether this thing, there was illegality or there was something wrong that happened, because there's been no clarity that has been given.
I think the tensions in the organization have reached such a stage that objectivity has become the casualty of the day. I'll give you an example. It might be a boring example. When I was a chair of the PIC, you remember I was paraded, my name was paraded around that I'm leading a syndicate that is siphoning billions of PIC. It was there was a diagram. And I was hardly 6 months in the PIC. And there was no basis whatsoever. It was one of the most stupid and most reckless thing to do about my name. But it's there. Cleared, investigations were done. It was announced on television that there's no evidence of that. By the way, remember I joined PIC in 2018, but I was investigated up until 2015. But I didn't even care, by the way, because I had nothing to hide. But the point is, even when that matter was cleared, Thabo, people who want to have a squinch, want just to mess up me, said, you, the billion, what to call, siphoner, you have put somebody's name there. For instance, I'll give an example. My name was appeared in the Sunday Times. They said I committed fraud on the city manager's contract. That's a stupid story which has got no basis. Prosecutors have dismissed that thing, it's got no basis. But my name is already there. So the point I'm saying is that in an area where we've got such tensions, it has become now a practice to throw mud at one another. That's why those processes, you know, for instance, at any point in time, laws of that time are informed by the state of a given situation. When the organization is very healthy, some of these laws might not be necessary. But the state and the health of the organization requires that you have tighter processes where it is easy to cast aspersion on one another. And I think the president is no actual exception in as far as that is concerned.
Let's talk then, again, on issues of performance. There is a priority amongst the 7 priorities as far as performance is concerned for this administration, and one of those areas is social cohesion. Mm-hmm. Am I correct? Mm-hmm. Now, we've seen the practice and the vocalization of racism that continues. Case in point is the recent pitbull lady Belinda from our area there in Egurule. The fact that they're able to continue still to vocalize publicly and practice this thing of racism, can there be a better punishment or a stronger message that we could send on would-be perpetrators of such? If we failed, would you say, to eradicate the racism virus?
You see, the fact that legal punishment for racism has become the primary thing is an expression of a nation that is struggling to be united. My attitude is that you will not resolve racial stereotypes purely in the law. Law, to me, is a framework to ensure minimally that racism is delegitimized, is illegalized. But the future of racial harmony does not lie in those punishments. It lies in us leading the country in a manner that actually deepens appreciation of one another. As I'm sitting here now, there's a lot of things that militate against that. The fact that blacks are still in their majority poor, have no access to a number of things, it's not a basis for racial harmony. Remember, the nation-building coin has got 2 sides to it. Is that you will not separate an inclusive South Africa, a future inclusive South Africa, from the correction of the iniquities of the past. So those 2, unless at all material times they go together, you will continue to come to these issues. I think we need to go beyond. President Thabo Mbeki once said, there are 3 tasks that the National Democratic Revolution is confronted with. So the first task is political freedom, which happened in 1994. So the second task is to deal with the legacy of apartheid. So the third task is to build a new South Africa. Legacy of the past is the key thing that we must find our way around it. Although our organization, in its state it is now, must accept that being a leader of society and finding ourselves in this situation, we are actually spending a lot of time on what is irrelevant in as far as where the nation is. Because I want to argue laws on their own are not going to resolve. The nation, we must be able to create an environment where South Africans appreciate racial harmony and look forward and love it and make it their law without the mechanical law. That's my point.
One more question for you. So I've got to take a break. I'll keep you still so that we can address that, and then I'll let you go. Mondli Gungubele, stay. Back with you tonight here on In Focus, and thanks for staying on. Mondli Gungubele, NEC member of the ANC and minister in the presidency, still with us. Well, here's my question for you. Any of the top 6 candidates who is campaigning, right, currently claims to be endorsing one president or another, or aligned to one president or another. Now, the conversation is around whether or not the ANC will be able to get rid of slate politics. I was reading one article, what is it? What you call the provincial secretary of KwaZulu-Natal saying slate politics will not be eradicated because the mere fact that you are aligning to a particular candidate for presidency, that in itself is already slate politics. In other words, yourself. He didn't say so, but I am saying yourself, as you have aligned to a particular presidential candidate, you are promoting slate politics.
I mean, people can throw whatever vocabulary they want to throw. The key thing is that there's a conference. We assess the state of the organization in one way or another, knowing the objective, the strategic objectives of the organization and where it is now. You will prefer certain leaders either to continue part of what you think is going okay, or to turn around part of what you think is not going okay. That will translate in a certain set of names. So if people tend to call it that a slate, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Of course, there is a, how do I put this? Having a preferred team and factional things. What is the factional stuff where people said, if you are not one of us, those politics, if you are not one of us, at that point, you are no longer suggesting names on the basis of what the organization is confronted with. You are beginning to prefer leadership on the basis of grouping. To me, if slate means that, that's something that an organization like the ANC must fight hard to get rid of. But even in ideal circumstances where there is no tension, you will always prefer a particular team. Sometimes you might find that you are two groupings who happen to prefer particular teams. You find that even in your name you are mixed. Yeah, there are names that are in that other group. There are names that are in that other group. It's going to be difficult to do away with that. Whether that is late politics, I agree with KwaZulu-Natal that phenomenon, as long as you choose particular leaders, you will be associated with whatever. Yeah. People call that
the challenge comes when you are then unable to dismantle that grouping and get back to being one party.
I agree with you. Again, that also becomes an indication of the health of the organization. But you know what is interesting? I wish you guys can be flies. Is it flies on the fly on the wall?
Fly on the wall, yeah.
Where the NEC is sitting. When I read newspapers about the war in the NEC that I attend and the one that is reported about, the difference is embarrassingly huge. There's a lot of issues that we contest in the NEC. All those comrades who are in the NEC, that's why I wish you guys can be fly on the walls. During break, there is no particular group that goes and have a tea with a particular group. We mix. Let me use one person I usually use, Nwvula Mkhize, for instance. I've been with her for a long time, even I came here in the Gauteng in the mid-80s. I used to say, she's one person I used to share drinks. We'll go and have drinks together. We know, what was this newspaper of that New Age? They was used that they used to call the big interview. That I remember I was interviewed. I said, she is one person I used to socialize with, but we've never agreed on leadership. Right. But we would tell each other as we drink that, my friend, I'm not supporting this, and you are not supporting this. I remember 1998, I was contesting to be secretary. We would drink together and say, no, I'm not going to support you on that. All I'm saying is that even in this current NEC, you can go there, be a fly on the wall. The story of the blood on the floor, oh, for God's sake, I don't see that. But there are very issues that we contest. So,
Mondli Gungubele, appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks, Tabo.
That is the Minister in the Presidency there, Mondli Gungubele, also member of the ANC's NEC.